The streets of Old Town Portsmouth are filled with history, which should surprise no one. Founded in 1752, Portsmouth was the site of some important events during the Revolutionary War and the Civil War. And being home to the oldest shipyard in the United States, it played a pivotal role in 2 world wars. In other words, there's a lot of history to celebrate here. February is Black History Month, and on today's show, we're going to look at some upcoming events celebrating that history. That's all coming up right here, right now, on this episode of Portsmouth Now. Happy New Year and welcome to another season of Portsmouth Now. I'm your host, Rob Lauer. I'm standing here on North Street in Old Town, right down the road from a very important landmark, Emanuel AME Church. It's the oldest Black congregation in this region, founded in 1772, 3 years before the American Revolution. It was also a stop on the Underground Railroad. We're going to head that way for an interview. I can't think of a more appropriate place for them. I'm joined by Karen Washburn, who's the creative director of Maryville and the Colonials. Welcome back to Portsmouth Now, Karen.
Thanks, Rob.
Well, Black History Month is here. I know that you are really an expert on Portsmouth history, being a reenactor. So tell us a little bit about where we are and what we're looking at around here.
Well, we're standing in front of Emanuel AME Church, which replaced another church called Old Emanuel that stood on Glasgow Street that was burned to the ground. Both of these churches, although no runaways were ever found, it's clear that they were both very important stops on the Underground Railroad, which was very active here in Portsmouth.
Wow, wow. Now, how old is the church? I mean, I know the building was built in 1857, I think.
The church dates back to...
but the congregation goes way back.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Back to, and it originally was a white congregation, and then converts, Black converts, they shared the building. And then the white congregation decided to build a new building, which now stands on King Street, I believe. And so then they donated they just gave the building over to the African American congregation. And but it was most definitely burned because there were always suspicions that it was
an arson,
part of the Underground Railroad. So.
Wow, wow. So what do you have going on this month with Black history, as far as tours and things like that?
Well, we have, we're going to be doing our Heroes in History Walk, which tells the story of African Americans in Portsmouth from the colonial period through the Civil Rights movement. And speaking of Civil Rights movement, we're right across the street from the birthplace of Mayor James Holly III, who entertained Martin Luther King in that home. And he also was very active in the civil rights movement and changing laws here in Portsmouth.
Yes.
But getting back to the walk, as I said, it's from the colonial period through the civil rights movement. It tells that story not only in stories, but also in song. We have a lot of songs that we sing on that walk as well. And normally we offer it year round. People can call and schedule a walk. But because it's Black History Month, we'll be doing it every Saturday at 10 o'clock and every Sunday at 3 o'clock throughout February.
Okay, now if someone wanted tickets for this, how do they get tickets?
Well, you can buy tickets online at our website, portsmouthlivinghistory.com.
Okay.
Or you can buy them at the Welcome Center, or you can give us a call and probably make a reservation or purchase tickets over the phone. You can also buy them at the site, but there's a limited number of tickets. So if you want to ensure that you can take the walk, it's best to go ahead and buy your tickets in advance.
Fantastic. Well, if you're interested in seeing history come to life, get some tickets. Thanks for being with us, Karen.
You're very welcome.
I'm joined by Stephen Grunett from the Portsmouth Art and Cultural Center and also from the Portsmouth Department of Museums and Tourism. Welcome back to Portsmouth Now, Stephen.
Thank you.
Now, I understand that you are also chairperson this year of the committee overseeing the celebration of African American history, Black history.
Yeah, I'm actually co-chair and with Venice Breton, who's based at the Children's Museum. So we're all one big department. And So every year we, about mid-January to the end of February, celebrate African American history and some of the people who are working with our community today that make this place a wonderful environment to be in. So we celebrate by having exhibits and programs for all ages, and except for a couple exceptions, they are pretty much all open and free to the public.
That's great. Now, what sort of exhibits do you have coming up?
So the events will kick off as of January 15th, and that's when an exhibit at the Portsmouth Community Colored Library Museum will open, and it will be up for the duration of African American History Month and probably even farther. It celebrates Portsmouth's black baseball players.
Okay.
It's called Root for the Home Team. And with that will be a number of programs, and some are for adults and some are for children, so it's great because it really kind of grasps all ages. The majority of programs will be taking place at the Children's Museum and at the Portsmouth Art and Cultural Center and the main branch of the library in Old Town. So all of them are very close to each other. The Community Library Museum that I mentioned earlier is a little bit further. It's just off of Elm Street. So you'd have to drive there from the other locations. But so I'm just going to mention a few of the programs we have going on because there are so many. Pretty much each Saturday there will be a special program at one of the museums, and then the library will kind of fill in during the week with some of their programs. So, and if you are interested, you can go onto any of the museum's websites or the library or a lot of the city websites have the brochure with a full list of all the programs.
So you can download that and look at it?
Exactly. You can download it as a PDF, and it will list all the events and the locations.
Great.
So one of them that comes to the top of my head is on January 22nd. There's going to be, or excuse me, January 29th, we're going to have an event called Java and Djembes, and this is something we did last time before the pandemic in 2000. We did it in 2020, right before the shutdown. And it's a percussion workshop. Now this is one where it costs $10 a person, so you have to pre-register for it.
Okay.
And it features an African drumming workshop as well as chocolates and coffees that are sourced from the African continent. Ethically sourced from the African continent, because these are ingredients you have to be careful of.
Right.
And then in February, on February 2nd, the library is going to have a special program on steel pan drums and kind of about the history of that special instrument that came into the Americas. Towards the middle of February, there is going to be a program that features a couple of gentlemen named Howard and Richard Baugh. And this is someone who you will be interviewing
later
a little bit later in this show. And they're going to give a talk on the history of the Tuskegee Airmen and how they were involved with a story called The First Top Guns. And so it talks about a competition of fighter squadrons that took place in Nevada. And the Tuskegee Airmen were part of this, of their fighter squadron who competed with others throughout the country. And I won't tell you any more about it because I don't want to give anything else away. So there's a whole bunch of events. There was one before the Java and Djembes on January 22nd. I believe that's going to be at the Children's Museum.
Okay.
And that is specifically for a younger audience. It's called Miss Martha Reads. And there's going to be a story time and then an art activity. And Ms. Martha is a storyteller. She has a featured program on the local NPR station, WHRV. And I believe it's every Fridays on their Facebook page.
Okay.
And so she's going to be the guest artist or guest speaker, and she's a storyteller. And this is for children, and that will be Most of the events are at 1:30, but I can't remember the time specifically for that event.
But if you download it or call the museum.
Right, exactly, yeah. So if anyone has any questions, they can call me at 393-8543. They can ask for Steven specifically, and I can answer their questions, or they can go on to any of the websites for the museum.
A quick question. I know the two drum events, the one at the library and the one at the Portsmouth Cultural Center, are those more, you go there, are you more part of an audience? Is it more audience participation?
Yeah, a lot of it is audience participation.
Okay.
So most of the programs I mentioned, with the exception of the presentation by Howard and Richard Baugh on the Tuskegee Airmen, they are interactive. Okay. So you are in a workshop, you are playing an instrument or creating art or sampling foods that come from Africa. So this is all a way of, you know, sharing the history. Sort of
immersing yourself in a little bit of the
exactly,
culture.
Because there's so much history here in Portsmouth, and so much we can learn from the people in the community here in this area.
Now the two drum events, is that age restriction? I mean, is that more geared towards adults? Or?
The Java and Djembes is.
Okay.
The Java and Djembes is for ages 17 and up.
Okay, and this is the one that's at the Portsmouth Art
At the Portsmouth Art and Cultural Center, but the one at the library is for all ages. It's really probably geared more for a younger audience. Fantastic.
Now, that's great as far as interactive things. Are there exhibits going on at the museums having to do with Black history?
The one I mentioned at the Portsmouth Community College Library Museum on the African American baseball players, specifically from Portsmouth.
All right, and so back to the Community Library Museum. Is that open throughout the year at this point?
I'm not sure on the specific hours, but it will be open as of January 15th. It may be open only on weekends.
Okay.
But it may be open, the majority of the museums are open Wednesday through Sunday.
Yeah.
And we've been open from, in the past, 10 to 5, but the hours have changed a little bit from 9 to 4:30. So I'm not quite sure about the times, but I can find out if anyone wants to.
All right, and I can look this up, I guess, online as well. But that's, you know, being Portsmouth, probably the newest museum in the city. It is one of the most unique.
Oh, yeah.
The building itself is an artifact.
Exactly.
And well, great. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Steve.
Thank you for having me, Rob. I appreciate that.
Are you considering a career in law enforcement? Sign on today as a Portsmouth police officer and receive up to $1,500 if you're already Virginia certified. We offer a $1,000 allowance for a bachelor's degree and a $500 allowance for an associate's degree on top of your base pay. Officers can also earn additional income on time spent in court and at community events. Visit our website at portsmouthpd.us for more information on how to apply.
Routines like staying active or talking to friends can help keep you centered. For more tips, visit coping-19.org.
Portsmouth Fire Rescue and Emergency Services is hiring, and we need you. Become a firefighter with the City of Portsmouth. We have career opportunities for paramedics, EMTs, military veterans, and career options for recent college graduates. Visit our recruitment page at fire.portsmouthva.gov. Portsmouth Fire Rescue and Emergency Services needs you.
Practicing meditation, mindfulness, or other spiritual practices can help ground you. For more tips, visit coping-19.org.
We'd like to welcome to Portsmouth now Howard Baugh, who is here to tell us about the historic Tuskegee Airmen. Welcome to Portsmouth now, Howard.
Thank you so much. It's nice to be here.
Great to have you. Tell us a little bit about what is your connection to the Airmen?
Actually, my father was one of the original Tuskegee Airmen, and I am the president of the Howard Baugh chapter, Tuskegee Airmen Incorporated, based in Petersburg, where my dad was born and raised. There are 56 such Tuskegee Airmen chapters throughout the nation. And our mission statement is to perpetuate the history, to keep the legacy of the brave men and women who fought an enemy overseas and fought racism and bigotry here in the United States. and set the stage for a lot of integration that occurred thereafter. The Tuskegee Airmen was a completely segregated unit, all black, not just the pilots, but all the support personnel, whether gunneries, maintenance, chiefs, cooks, and bottle washers. You know, it was all a black segregated community. I am the president of the Howard Baugh chapter. The second part of our mission statement is to inspire youth to be all that they can be. We have a bent toward aviation. You've heard of the STEM program. We call it the STEAM program: science, technology, engineering, aviation, and mathematics. I am a retired airline pilot. My dad commissioned me when I graduated from college, and when I went off to pilot training in the Air Force, when I graduated from pilot training, he pinned his wings on me. Wow. And they're in the trophy case in my house now. But I stand on the wings, my career. I flew airplanes for 42 years. And my career stands on the wings of the Tuskegee Airmen.
Wait, tell us a little bit about your dad. You said he was from Petersburg.
He was.
Obviously born there at a time of intense racism and segregation everywhere, especially
Indeed.
here in the South.
And he always wanted to be a pilot. And he built model airplanes, and he could identify any of the airplanes he saw flying overhead. Was always told that he could not be a pilot because of the color of his skin. The very first time he was in an airplane, he was in the cockpit at the controls. So your dreams are valid.
Yeah.
You know, don't listen to people who tell you, oh no, you can't, because yes, you can. The reason for the red jackets is because the Tuskegee Airmen flew the airplanes with the red tails. The 1995 movie, the HBO movie that came out called the Tuskegee Airmen, put us on the map, so to speak. But the 2012 movie by George Lucas, The Red Tails, really brought us out. And there was a lot of Hollywood in that, but it's still a great documentary. There's a lot of information online about the Tuskegee Airmen and their achievements. And we hope to spark some interest with this, that they will go online. And we have a website. If you Google Howard Baugh, B-A-U-G-H is the last name, you'll find it. And a lot of interesting information there.
Wait, you said your father, what was his journey from Petersburg, being told that he could never fly an airplane because of the color of his skin, to actually being in that cockpit? How did he get there?
He graduated from Virginia State, but it's Virginia State University now. It was Virginia State College back then. And he, in 1941, so the European theater was just ramping up. And he had heard about a program where they were going to start to allow blacks into pilot training. So he applied and actually did get one of the slots. He was in class 42J that started in 1942. And the program was a tremendous success. In fact, it was so much of a success, they had a 40% failure rate, washout rate. Well, when the white squadrons heard that Tuskegee Airmen were only washing out 40%, the white pilot training bases had a washout rate around 60%. So they insisted that the Tuskegee Airmen wash out more than what they were doing. My dad started in a class of 20, and only 4 graduated. But a little bit about the Tuskegee Airmen program. Tuskegee trained 996 pilots graduated. 355 were deployed overseas to actually fight in the European theater. They flew 15,553 sorties on 1,578 missions. They flew 179 bomber escort missions, and throughout their entire theater, they lost fewer than any of their counterparts, the white P-51 squadrons, the fighter squadrons. They only lost 27. On average, the other squadrons lost 46 to enemy air fighters. They destroyed 950 rolling stock, which include 600 rail cars, tanks, munition carriers, troop carriers. They destroyed 40 boats and barges. In fact, two P-47s coming back from an escort mission came upon a German destroyer off the coast of Italy, and with machine gun fire alone, destroyed the destroyer.
Wow.
66 were shot down and killed. 66 of the airmen were shot down and killed, and 32 were shot down and captured. They were held in a special Stalag prison camp that was run by the Luftwaffe. And it was not segregated. They put in with the other pilots. They kept all the pilots in a very secure Stalag because they had a special skill. They could jump into any airplane and take off and leave. So one of the Tuskegee Airmen was being interrogated by a German officer. Says, "Why is it you people fight so fiercely for a country that treats you so poorly?" He did not answer because he knew no matter what he said was going to be held against him. But my dad said that they went to war not fighting for the country they had, but the country they hoped to have. They thought if they did such a stellar performance that things would change when they got back to the United States. Tuskegee Airmen won a few awards. They got a silver medal, a Silver Star, Red Star of Yugoslavia, the Legion of Merit Award, 2 soldier medals, 3 Distinguished Unit Citations, 9 Purple Hearts, 14 Bronze Stars, 96 Distinguished Flying Crosses, and 744 Air Medals. This from a squadron that was expected to fail. When they first went over there, nobody wanted them flying anywhere near the other airplanes, thinking they would be reckless and maybe even shoot down friendly aircraft. After they established their amazing record, then the Red Tails were requested by the bomber crews, you know. Things did not change, but a few things to learn from the Tuskegee Airmen is that anytime anybody achieves success, it proves anybody can achieve success.
Right.
And whether you think you can accomplish something or you think you can't, you are quite probably correct. The ruling class back in the early 40s was white men. There was a lot of white men that did not want to see blacks progress and move forward. Fortunately, there was a lot of white men who did want to see the black pilots achieve. And it's amazing what you can accomplish if we all work together.
Yeah.
In fact, I might say that again, just in case Washington, D.C. is listening. It's amazing what we can accomplish if we all work together. My dad flew 136 combat missions in World War II and was fortunate enough to shoot down aerial victories, we call them, 2 FW-190s back in 1944. They shot down 112 airplanes, enemy aircraft, destroyed another 150 on the ground, and damaged another 148. They had a tremendous record. Next month at the museum here, my younger brother and I are going to talk about the first Top Gun. I don't know if a lot of people have seen the movie Top Gun with Tom Cruise. Great movie. But the first one was in 1949, and it was won by the Tuskegee Airmen. They won they came in first place flying P-47s. The other people were, the white squadrons were flying P-51s, a much superior airplane. They were supposed to get a trophy, but they didn't, because they canceled the parade and the ceremony the next day. And they told the Tuskegee Airmen, somebody already picked up that trophy. They didn't find that trophy until 1973, and it was in a storage facility at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Dayton, Ohio. But we still have the record. The reason we have Black History Month is if Black history was not recorded. We still have people in our organizations that are still doing research and still talking to people and trying to gather data to put in the history books. Black history is American history.
Exactly.
It's very important.
Yeah. You can't appreciate American history as a whole without it. You're missing a huge leg of it without it. Well, thank you so much for coming here and sharing all of this. And we look forward to hearing you and your brother speak at the museum in just a few weeks.
Come on out and see us.
I will. I'll be there.
Thank you so
again.
much, sir.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
And now we have two very special guests, people from Portsmouth's historic past. And we'd first like to welcome Miss Sally Walker. Hello, Miss Walker.
Hello, Rob.
So tell us a little bit about yourself. When did you live and what did you do?
I was part of the Hampton elite. And so my story tells how Virginia law affected people of African descent and how it was changed by events in Virginia history. Back in the beginning, in the early 1600s, free blacks, enslaved blacks, indentured blacks, indentured whites, and free whites who were poor were all the same class. And so we worked together and we socialized together and we intermarried. And the product of those marriages were what you would call today mixed race children, but what we called mulattoes. That's what we were called. And so these children, as the laws changed, their mothers, as all mothers do, developed strategies to protect these children from the changing laws. And some of those strategies were to encourage them to align themselves with people of influence, both black and white, in order to, who could help their situation or further them in life. For example, someone who would take you on as an apprentice, and then you would have a skill, or someone who would teach you how to read and write, which would also give you a leg up in life. And so when my daughter Mary was born, I made sure that she went to Alexandria and she had a proper English education, which was very important. But when she became a teenager, they passed a law that forbid all blacks, free and enslaved, from being educated. And there were stiff penalties for whites and blacks that were caught teaching them to read and write. And so Mary, her story has to do with how she took what she learned and all of her skill and very bravely helped other people. But again, that's her story. And so if you want to hear about her story, please come on the African American Walk, our Heroes in History Walk, because she is one of the heroes of African American history here in our area.
Well, we look forward to that, and we will. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Our next guest is James Armistead Lafayette. Greetings, Mr. Lafayette.
Good day, sir. How are you today?
You're very well. Good to have you here.
Thank you so very much.
For our audience members who don't know who you are, tell us a little bit about your story.
My name's James Armistead Lafayette. I was born in 1760 in a place called New Kent, Virginia. Now, I'm sure you're familiar with that area. I was the very first double agent and spy in the American Revolutionary War. Now, one of my claims to fame is being in the tent of the Marquis de Lafayette when he brought Lord Cornwallis in, General Cornwallis in, and he had seen that I was the one that had usurped his power. So he had a few choice words for me, but it was said that one of his words, the things that he said was, "You scoundrel, you fool me again." But I'm sure he said it with a little bit more provocateur than that.
Yes. Yeah. So now, did you live in Portsmouth at one point?
Yes, I did. I lived on North Street at one time, and that was the residence of Lord Cornwallis. Also, where you have the coffee shop now, downtown Portsmouth, that was the residence and headquarters for Benedict Arnold. That scoundrel, that double-crosser. Yes, that was the headquarters, and I lived in both places at one time. I would watch them as they mapped out their strategies and by me serving only as a cook or waiter or something like that, a menial job, they had no idea that I was about to have a great coup of what they thought.
So Benedict Arnold would probably call you a scoundrel.
Yes, he would. He definitely would call me a scoundrel.
So, and you played an important part in the whole turning point.
Yes,
the
yes, I did.
war.
The last definitive battle on the East Coast, the Battle of Yorktown, as a matter of fact. Well, we called it Little York. You called it Yorktown. The Battle of Yorktown was the last definitive battle on the East Coast, and that was the battle where we actually had Lord Cornwallis's troops trapped on all three sides. He had no alternative but to give up.
Wow.
And that's where he surrendered at.
Well, thank you for your service.
Thank you so very much. Thank
now,
you
I understand
so
that you and you're going to share a song with us.
Yes, I am. I'm going to ask this Miss Sally if she would come in and we will do this song right here. Are you ready for it?
And this song is from during the Civil Rights era.
Yes, it is.
Ain't gonna let
nobody turn me around, turn me around, turn me around. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. I'm gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, marching under freedom land.
Thank you so much. And thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so very much. It's our pleasure.
That's it for our show today. If you'd like to find out more about any of the events we discussed on today's show or any other events taking place in Portsmouth, simply log on to www.portsvacation.com. And then come to Portsmouth, where if you give us a day, we'll give you a vacation. I'm Rob Lauer. Join me next time for our March-April episode of Portsmouth Now.